This is absolutely one of the most hopeless ways to die in the world. On February 25, 2022, 5 American commercial divers were contracted by a major oil company, Braytech Energy, to perform maintenance on an underwater pipeline in the Gulf of Mexico. But due to a dangerous difference in pressure between the inside and outside of the pipe, the moment one of the divers unscrewed a bolt, the narrow pipeline acted like a black hole, instantly sucking in all the surrounding air, along with all 5 divers and their oxygen tanks. They were violently pulled through the pipe by seawater, sliding uncontrollably for over a minute, choking on saltwater before finally coming to a stop. Though the area was pitch black and eerily silent, by a stroke of luck, the section where they landed wasn't fully flooded. There was still a small pocket of air they could breathe. As the men slowly regained consciousness, they began calling out for each other in the darkness. 2 of them had broken bones, but the rest were mentally alert, although a deep sense of fear and hopelessness had already taken over. They knew no one was coming to save them. It was all up to them now. But in this pitch-black, oil-contaminated tunnel, making it out alive felt harder than scaling a mountain. There was a little oxygen left, but not enough to last long, and seawater could flood in at any moment. Instead of waiting to die, they made the decision to fight. Swallowing their fear, they began crawling forward, inch by inch, like warriors in total darkness. After about an hour of painful crawling, the man at the front, Chris Walker, noticed the water level rising. If they went any further, they'd have to dive underwater, but their oxygen tanks had long been swept away. No one knew how much farther the pipeline stretched, and with 2 men already injured, if even one person slowed down, all of them would perish. Left with no other choice, Chris made a decision. He would go ahead, alone. He promised that if he made it out, he'd send help. If he didn't come back, they'd know he didn't survive. The other 4 agreed. It was the best shot they had, and so Chris pushed forward, by himself. After about 20 minutes of crawling, seawater had nearly filled the pipe. Chris took one final breath and dove under. Roughly 30 seconds later, his hand struck something solid. He reached around. It was an oxygen tank. Overwhelmed with emotion, he grabbed it and kept swimming, hope slowly returning. But after more than 30 minutes underwater, still no sign of an exit. His oxygen was almost gone. And then, another miracle, another oxygen tank. Without thinking twice, he shoved the tube into his mouth, inhaling through the thick stench of crude oil, and kept moving. 20 more minutes passed, and then his heart skipped a beat. Chris had reached a bend in the pipeline. He turned upward and swam with everything he had left. This was it, life or death. By sheer luck, he broke the surface. Chris gasped for air and screamed for help with all the strength he had. By now, over 2 hours had passed since the 5 divers were sucked into the pipe. Back on the support vessel, their teammates had already realized something was wrong and had begun searching. Just then, they heard faint shouting. They dropped an iron chain into the water and pulled Chris out. Barely conscious, Chris explained everything about what happened inside. Then, he collapsed. When he woke up in a hospital bed, the first thing he asked was about the rescue mission, but what he was told made his blood boil. Yes, the company had sent a team to investigate. They even heard faint knocking coming from inside the pipe, but the pipe was too narrow. The only way to save the others was to dismantle the entire pipeline. So, to protect corporate profits, the executives decided to call off the rescue mission. 5 days later, Braytech Energy announced that the 4 remaining divers were found, bodies intact but lifeless. Autopsies confirmed that they had survived for days after Chris escaped. They died one by one, not from injuries but from exhaustion, thirst, and lack of oxygen, on the 4th day. No one can begin to imagine the pain and despair they endured. Not even Chris could forgive himself. After recovering, he filed a lawsuit against Braytech Energy, demanding justice and accountability for the horrifying failure to act.